I hate excellence in the classroom.
That's today's guest, conductor, clinician, speaker, author, adventurer, and advocate Milt Allen on how to rethink artistry. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley. And for this intro, podcast insider Matt Priest.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Matt, tell us about our guest.
Trying to categorize Dr. Milt Allen is as difficult as trying to describe his musical interests. An internationally recognized conductor, music educator, speaker, author, and music advocate, not to mention avid adventurer, describes an individual often taking the trail less traveled, sometimes literally. From Tanzania to Haiti to Rwanda to Compton, California, Milt's extensive experiences from teaching and performing music from grassroots to university levels, then creating his own nonprofit, the Music Guerrilla, only begins to describe his musical passion. Find Milt's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was a takeaway you had from this episode?
Inspiration. This was really special. How about you, Steve?
Well, you know I'm in this constant struggle between appreciating what a traditional instrumental music education has done for me, while also recognizing that it probably needs to evolve. Milt has some great ideas for how we can adapt while still preserving many of the things that you and I love about the way we have taught instrumental music at the secondary level in this country.
Yes. And his 12 steps to cope with burnout and stress will be a blessing to a lot of our listeners.
Thank you, gentlemen. You know, insiders like me have already had access to an ad-free, unedited version of this episode. If you want the benefits of being a Music Ed Insights insider and support this effort for just $5 a month, head to musicedinsights.com to learn more. For now, let's get some inspiration from Milt Allen.
Milt Allen, welcome to the program.
Thanks. I am delighted to be here.
We've asked you here today to discuss making music in an age of anxiety.
Yeah.
Of concern, of course, is that students are increasingly stressed out and anxious, but so are the teachers. And I feel like this is not quite getting the attention it deserves. What are you seeing?
Absolutely. I couldn't concur more. One of the things that's distressed me since the pandemic, we had a pandemic, didn't know if you were aware of that, but had this pandemic, is that as we've returned back to schools, there's been all these in-services for teachers that deal with student wellness and what students are dealing with, but there doesn't seem to be anything for the teachers. And I think the teachers are just getting lost and are lost. I'm really concerned about it. And we're seeing the burnout. We're seeing dropout from teachers.
Well, I encourage listeners to check out the website you've set up to promote your organization called The Music Guerrilla. And that's right. Guerrilla, not the gorilla.
Right. Guerrilla. We're waging music. That's what we're doing.
Waging music. So as I was perusing it, this sentence jumped out at me.
Yeah.
Our society is at war with our artistic culture. In particular, music is fast becoming both an elitist pursuit as well as an artifact increasingly manipulated for financial gain. What do you mean by this? And could you give us a few examples?
Basically, if you've got the money to study music in any way, shape, or form, that's kind of what we're gearing things toward. If we look at even some of the things within schools that as educators we focus on, a lot of those are entrenched with what kind of monetary figure does it take to make that happen? I'm going to preface this by saying I'm an old drum corps guy and I'm an old marching band guy, but it alarms me when we're spending more money on a marching band show than we are on what's happening in the classroom. And I think there's a difference there. When we step back and look at where the majority of our budget's going, or where a large part of our budget is going, that says something about what our focus is in the program. For example, if we spend X amount of dollars, let's say getting a show written, getting a show arranged, and that's great, but for the same amount of money, we could commission a major work. We could provide more instruments or more music making ability to students within our school. What's that saying about our program? Is that possible?
So the first part of that quotation, our society is at war with our artistic culture. Can we dive more into that? Do you see a war happening that is not related to, well, we should have maybe bought flutes instead of more marching band props, and just a general sense of there are large sections of our society who say, no, we don't need that. And that is causing stress, anxiety, burnout for our music teachers?
I think it's a big part of it. I think we also face the challenge of we are dealing with, in many cases, historical archive. In other words, if we look at what's happening in the instrumental classroom right now, and we look at how we're teaching and what we're teaching, is that relevant? And that's the key. Example, Steve, jazz. Years ago, jazz was first introduced in the schools. And I think if we look at the reason why that was introduced, we could learn a lot. Because the reason that it was introduced way back when was because it was the popular music of the time. It was relevant. Now we fast forward, jazz ensembles, jazz combos, those kinds of things are accepted. How often, and also we saw jazz outside, very prominent. Orchestrally, do we see that now? Do we see that with concert bands? Again, why the prominence of marching bands, I think, as well. So I think in some ways, are our large ensembles, our large concert classical ensembles becoming historical archive? Are they really pertinent? And then what we try to do sometimes as teachers is say, well, it teaches discipline, it teaches leadership, it teaches all these other things. Those are byproducts. What's that got to do with music, other than music being a way to do that? I remember a principal asked me, he told me one time, we're going to cut the music program. And I said, you can't do that. And he said, why? And I started rolling out the things that I had heard, leadership and discipline, and it teaches me to put my clothes on and tie my shoes, all that stuff. And he said, so does our football team, which just killed me. There's a place for everyone in music and all those kinds of things. Really? Is there a place for everyone? What percentage of the population of our schools are involved in our concert band, in our orchestra, in our show choir? Are we missing something? And I think a key to it goes back to, are we teaching what's relevant? Or are we continuing to perpetuate historical archive? Since we've gotten away from COVID, what I've seen is the programs that were just smoking hot, incredible programs have been able to kind of carry on status quo, right or wrong. What we're losing is a lot of those smaller programs. We're losing kind of those okay programs. And that's because that historical archive is caught up with them. At this point, are we trying to educate or are we trying to indoctrinate? And that's a very fine line. Are we giving our students a vehicle to expand themselves? Or in some ways, are we perpetuating something that needs to morph into something different? I've been super fortunate in my career. I mean, I've studied with incredible people and some of the old fountainheads, Fennell and Painter and those guys and various things. But is that time still relevant? And music needs to be relevant. We get through orchestra and we get through band. What is there on the outside? Another way to look at that is what I try to remind teachers that, listen, are you a band teacher or are you a music teacher? Are you an orchestra teacher or are you a music teacher? What's our ultimate goal? Have we lost sight of that?
So in 2024, what does this look like for you? A string orchestra at a high school or a concert band at a high school? What should those teachers be doing instead of what we have been doing for the last 50 or 100 years?
We spend so much time on recreating rather than creating. I tell you, I would love to see every single teacher teach improvisation. Just take 5 minutes, do a call response. We're teaching our students to be reenactors as opposed to vibrant, ongoing actors. We need to quit selling ourselves by talking about all the non-musical things. Put your lance in the ground and say, no, this is why music is important. This is why we need it. Everything else is a byproduct.
You see any places where that's happening, where that's taking hold, where it's not just like one or two individual teachers, but a county or an area or a region or a country?
One of the best places to look for it is in urban settings. Programs in urban settings are forced to do that. They're forced with ways to reach out to students that will capture their imagination. And that's why we're seeing taking kids with no musical background and using GarageBand to create music and movie music and that kind of thing.
I'd like to get back to the indoctrinating versus educating. So
Right.
Alan and I, let's say we are both teaching at high school band programs,
Yeah.
and we are both teaching the Holst First Suite to our band.
Yeah. Mhm.
What does it look like when Alan, the educator, is teaching the Holst First Suite to his band versus Steve, the indoctrinator, teaching Holst First Suite to his band?
My guess is Steve, the indoctrinator, is going to go right after it, man. He's going to go right after it, the right notes and right rhythms, and maybe done a little bit of research to make sure that we're playing the correct version and all that kind of good stuff. But Alan, the educator, is going to back up kind of what we used to call comprehensive musicianship. Alan, the educator, is going to go, okay, who is Holst? Let's put Holst in perspective in that time. Let's put the piece in perspective of last time. What's happening in the world in that time? I mean, all those things that went into creating that piece. Alan, the educator, is also going to go, okay, how can I link what was happening then with something that's happening now? Either a piece now or what's happening in culture right now. The whole suites were an incredible form of nationalism. How can we relate as an educator the bigger picture? So I think that's it. And I've actually had some directors, they would ask me to say something about one of those Hallmark pieces they're working on. And I remember one director said, well, we hadn't gotten time to get all the musical extra stuff yet. I thought, oh my gosh. Again, are we talking about the music or are we just talking about the piece?
It is simple enough that we could say Alan and I are both using basically the same textbook, the same curriculum, but
Right.
his process and my process are very different. So same material, but the experience for the kids feels like indoctrination with one and education versus
Right.
the other. And I use that example because my hope is that listeners will think, I can do a lot of this stuff with what is already in place. This does not
Mhm.
require a wholesale change. In fact,
No.
I could probably do some of this tomorrow with the music that's already in their folders.
I think most students have a predisposition, already have an anticipatory set of what music is and can be. It's a question of relating what they already know and don't know they know to what we're teaching them there, and then vice versa. And another great place to start, take a piece of music you're passionate about, as opposed to, I think my band or orchestra could play this. Forget that noise. What's a piece that you're drawn to, and why are you drawn to it? Because if you can channel that to your students, oh, they'll vibe off of that. And that's a great place to start.
So let's get back to teachers being anxious and burnt out.
Yeah.
And we've got this uphill battle for music in the schools, especially.
Yeah.
Originally, I was going to say music is facing an uphill battle to remain relevant. And that's not true at all. Music is still totally relevant. I think music, as we have been teaching it in the schools, is struggling to remain relevant.
Yes.
What are educators to do?
I think what we've really got to do, we need to step back and look at what our students need right now. And what I think is paradoxical about that is what our students need right now is the very thing that music offers. Connecting emotionally with what music is offering and understanding our students and reinforcing what we're giving them to fit those needs. I know that I've heard teachers, for example, on a Monday will say, tell me something wonderful that happened this weekend. They'll just spend a couple minutes. Well, that doesn't have to do with music. Really? We're musicians. I thought emotion did, but even in how we're playing something, how does that make you feel? What do you want the audience to feel at that point? I mean, we need to bring emotion, as goofy as this sounds, back into the instrumental music classroom.
Very related to what we were just talking about earlier. Would you make the argument that perhaps Alan, the educator, Steve, the indoctrinator, both teaching the Holst First Suite, Alan might be a little less burned out and anxious because of the way he is choosing to approach teaching that same material that I am teaching, but because I am teaching it with the intent of, we got to get the right edition and we got to do this and that. So when we go to contests, we get a 1. I'm contributing to my own anxiety and my own sense of being burned out.
Absolutely. The majority of musicians who teach I would say, if not all of us, we're at heart, we're creators, or we should be creators, right? We should have the soul of an artist, but the heart of a child. And if we're not focused on creating and helping others create, there's an anxiety that builds up there. And if we are totally focused toward a contest, as opposed to allowing a major performance or a contest be a growth of what comes out of our normal rehearsal sequence, then we need to step back and look. You're absolutely right. There's certainly the pressures in the schools and what's going on. But I found the majority of the pressures that I had when I was in the classroom, I created those paradigms.
So if we basically do the right thing, make music relevant to the students, make the creating important, pick literature that we are excited about, teach it in a way that educates and focuses on the process, it sounds like everybody wins here, except maybe we don't quite get the divisional rating we were hoping for at a festival. But to me, that seems like an easy trade-off. The students are getting a better educational experience. I'm probably doing more of the right thing, and I am less burned out.
Absolutely. And it's, and we haven't even talked about the personal things for teachers to do. There's a word that I hate that has permeated our schools and permeated our programs, and I'm sure it'll irritate a lot of people when I say it. And the word is excellence. I hate excellence in the classroom. And let me explain why. I'm so fortunate because I have a very, very career, and I've been able to hang with a lot of different people that do a lot of different things in a lot of different genres. Not once have I ever heard a truly professional musician ever use the word excellence, ever. The word they choose to use is artistry. And there's a huge, huge difference in that. Excellence is going toward a competition. We've got to be better than somebody else. That's not what's first and foremost of the musicians that I've met. And I've had, met some pretty cool people. Are we teaching our students to pursue artistry at any level, which includes healthy self-expression, or excellence, which includes checking the box?
So I know a couple listeners are listening to that thinking, yeah, but you know what you're not talking about? You're not talking about like lunch duty or hall duty or other duties as assigned or having to supervise a study hall or too much emphasis on some professional development trend. I think it's some things that are making teachers anxious and burned out have to do with some of the things that happen outside of their classroom.
Yeah.
Can you comment on how to cope with that in the same context?
Yeah. Teaching, I've tried to tell folks for years, it's a lot like preparing for a marathon or something, that how we and what we do outside of the rehearsal room is going to, in a large way, dictate how we're able to handle those stressors in life. So, for example, I'll run through 12 quick things, among other things, 12 quick things that I encourage teachers to do. For example, number one, I try to remind teachers that we are resilient. We can bounce back and we can deal. Number two, we need to reach out to our loved ones. Teachers forget that, and not just our significant other. It could be friends, neighbors, whatever. A third thing is rest. We always think, if I'm not doing this for my students, if I'm not doing 8 days a week, 5 weeks a month, 13 months a year, then I'm not a good teacher. No, you've got to rest. Take a nap. A fourth one, and this is one of the most challenging ones, whatever it takes, continue to show up for life. Just show up. If that's the best you can do, then do it. Rituals, routines are a good thing. They give your mind something positive to dwell on. A fifth thing is I strongly encourage people, teachers especially, take a break from watching, reading, or listening to news stories. Keep in mind that these news stories, we are a herd animal, and news is designed to play on our emotions, especially our empathetic predispositions. Just shut off the news. It's all slanted. And along with that, the sixth thing, social media. Take a break. Don't believe everything you think. A seventh thing is trust the unknown. Don't fear it. We think that we need to be comfortable and know what's going on. Hey, it's the unknown. We're musicians. We like that kind of thing. An eighth thing is take care of your body. which as musicians, by and large, we don't. Fuel, right? Rest, exercise. You got to take care of the vessel. The ninth thing is take time to unwind. It's okay to take a break. And I don't mean to sit down and listen to the latest recordings from, a music publisher. I mean, take a break. Take a 5-minute meditation. Put a sign on your office door that says from 7:50 to 7:55 is my time, no exceptions. Boom. Continue to connect with others. And by that, I mean, it could be you're doing the drive-through somewhere, getting food. Address that person. Hello, how are you doing? What's going on? I mean, just connect with others. And the 11th thing is the mental health. And this is a huge one. And one of the biggest things I can say about generally mental health is be selfish about your mental health. If you're having dark thoughts, reach out. Your mind can distort reality so badly. And I think we're finally getting through some of this, but be strong enough to reach out to a family member or a friend or a teacher, but take care of your mental health. And that starts with being selfish about who you are and how you feel. The 12th thing is it's not the event, it's how we choose to respond. This is the old ER equals outcome. Anything that happens in your life, anything that happens in your classroom, your response is going to in part determine what that outcome is, no matter how horrific it is. So it's not the event, that response. And the kicker is you're completely capable of wondrous things. We forget that, even in your darkest moments. And all of us are loved by others beyond our comprehension. I mean, enormously. So those are just kind of a bunch of quick points. To that, I want to also add, if you haven't open your biology book, make sure that you understand the neurological and biological development of students pre and during and post-adolescent. Because I think sometimes we forget how the brain works and the frontalization process and what has impact, because we have enormous impact. And another thing right now that I want to stress with educators is take a deeper dive into generational demographics. Understanding the millennial parent in particular, as well as understanding Generation Alpha that's coming up now, like no other generation remotely that we've ever had, is going to be key in how we teach them. And our Gen Z teachers who are starting to go out into the field, you Gen Z teachers are crucial moving forward, because you've got the best shot at understanding Generation Alpha and how incredibly different they are and how incredibly different they learn.
Milt, that may be the most action-packed, useful 3 minutes we have had. I'm going to encourage all of our listeners to rewind about 3 or 4 minutes, pause after each one of those 12, give those things some thought, listen to them again. And in particular, that last one you said that wasn't even one of the 12 about being aware of how the neurological systems work pre, during, and post-adolescence. It's like we all learn about that during our maybe sophomore year of college when we have to take that developmental psychology or whatever it's called course. And we kind of jump through the hoops. And like so many things with undergraduate music education preparation, it's so theoretical, it's important, but none of those 19, 20, 21-year-olds actually have a classroom full of students to think about as they are learning this material. And so I'll often say, go back and learn this again, check this out again now that you have actual students in front of you. Yeah. But that is one thing I never, ever thought about suggesting, taking a deep dive into how that all works.
We always wonder why music is important. If you look at the concept of neural pruning that happens through adolescence and the profound effect that instrumental music in particular has, there's justification for every music job in the country.
What else do we need to know about the music Guerrilla? Tell us all about it.
Well, the music Guerrilla, the genesis of it was when I had left formalized teaching, which was the worst financial decision I ever made. I kind of felt like in some ways maybe music and students were getting lost in academia. So I started this thing. Part of the genesis for it was as college educators, lots of times we go into the good or better programs to try to glean students from that. Part of my thinking was, well, what about those kids that are out in the sticks or in urban? Don't they deserve the same kind of thing? But they don't necessarily have the resource to bring somebody in or that kind of thing. And that's where I stepped in. I thought if there's any way that I could help with what I've done, then I'd be more than happy to do that. And so that's how it kind of all started. And so What that's morphed into is actually a couple ongoing relationships in Rwanda, in Zambia. I was doing Haiti for a while. The political situation's a little scary there right now. I was doing some things at Kendrick Lamar's old high school with Manny in Compton, and also just kind of one-offs. So I go in and I do these residencies with these schools, but also with schools that just would like a different view of things. There's a couple schools I do that bring me in twice a year, which is cool, beginning of the year and end of the year. That's part of what the Music Guerrilla does. And it doesn't matter the type of ensemble either. It's also getting into a couple other things. One of the things it's getting more into is teacher and student wellness. I'm doing more certification in crisis incident stress management because I'm very concerned about what's going on with teachers and having those conversations as well. And then just to put my money where my mouth is, and because I'm the king of bad adventure decisions, starting in August, on August 18th, I'll be leaving the Santa Monica Pier, and I'm doing a self-contained solo unsagged bike ride from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. And on the way, I'm available to do some evening keynotes or clinics or sit around and drink tea and coffee and chat, or, PD things for teachers on the way across.
Any chance you'll come through Iowa?
Yeah, what month will you hit Iowa?
Unfortunately, of the
a little
13,
out of the way.
A little. I'm doing 13 states, and it's mainly running through California, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Texas, up to Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, kind of that direction. And it's initially following the old Route 66 because nothing says dumb like the Mojave Desert on a bike in August.
On a bike in August, yeah.
Yeah. But slowly getting more information up about that. And there's a thing on the website about that too. But looking for teachers who'd like me to stop by if I'm on the route. And if they're not sure, holler.
Are there a couple of ways that people can either support your cause or gain wisdom, knowledge, experience from you that don't involve necessarily attending a workshop or bringing you into their school?
Quite honestly, I have no issues with somebody just messaging me through the website or just emailing me at milt@miltallen.com. I mean, I'm more than happy to engage or talk on the phone or talk you down off the ledge or however I can help. Absolutely.
I love it. Well, we can't let you out of here without the lightning round. Are you ready for 5 questions on some lighter topics?
Okay, I will do my best.
All right. You are relatively close compared to me and Alan to the Kansas City area. What's your favorite restaurant there?
Okay. Where I live is in the middle of Kansas, in a place called Salina, Kansas, at this wonderful place called Harmony Hideaway, which is a whole nother thing. It's kind of a way station for musicians and house concerts and all kinds of stuff. But where I love to go eat is up there at Bennington, Kansas, up there at West Side Ventures, because you can go there from 11 to 2 is when the grill's open, and from 5 to 7. And you can get caught up on cattle prices, who's burning what pasture, great hamburgers, great wafered meat. I just love going up there. I can be as dirty with my clothes as, West Side Ventures, Bennington, Kansas, highly recommend. 5 stars.
How about a piece of music, a composer or performer you wish more people knew about?
My answer to that is going to seem like I'm copping out, but I'm not. I think we all need to understand and be aware of more genres of music, just in general. I think we get too specific. I mean, the Americana music scene, the songwriting that's going on there, all the way to, the Deer Hunter is an incredible prog rock group. The Hunter Tones to Corey Wong I could go on forever, but my cop-out answer really is genres, man. How many genres of music do you listen to?
How about a favorite vacation destination?
I'm kind of an avid adventurer. The last thing I did was I climbed up to base camp, Mount Everest. So I climbed up to Everest Base Camp, and the Himalayas were just stunning. I mean, just to be there among the Himalayas. So that was pretty sweet. Mount Kilimanjaro was gorgeous, kind of same thing. So those are 2 that really stick out.
How about the most memorable live music performance you've attended?
Been to a lot of performances, guys. And you'll love this. I also worked concert security. I moonlighted in St. Louis and worked all genres of music there. Okay, off the top of my head, I'll just stream of consciousness. One that suddenly popped into my head, I don't know why. Chuck Mangione, when I was in early in high school or middle school because I went to this concert in Manhattan, Kansas, and I was meeting him afterwards, and he patted on the stage and just wanted to talk. And he's signing autographs as he's talking to me, and it made such an impression. But early Sting, Living Color. I remember doing security for Bruce Springsteen one time on his Ghost of Tom Joad, which was a solo tour, and half the people walked out, and it was a stunning performance. Tower of Power, John Prine. I remember Stan Kenton when I was a kid, Chick Corea. I've seen some great concerts. It's hard to pick.
And finally, a book recommendation for our listeners, please.
Get ready for this one. It's a little bit of Stoic philosophy. It's The Spiritual Teachings of Marcus Aurelius by Mark Forstater. There's some good stuff in that book. He opens it by just kind of discussing, who Marcus Aurelius was and some of the background to it, and then it gets into those actual teachings. I think it's a wonderful book.
Milt Allen, thank you so much for taking a break from your adventures and advocacy to spend some time talking to us today. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Allen works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamic.net/youth-leadership.
Or you could email me at allen@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at shanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's musicedinsights.com.
New episodes generally drop every couple weeks on Monday.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.